Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to the 12th Annual Women of Valor. I'm Todd Salovey, the Artistic Director of the Lipinski Family's San Diego Jewish Arts Festival.
And my name is Ali Viterbi, and I'm the Associate Artistic Director of the festival, as well as the Director and co-writer of Woman of Valor, along with writers Todd Salovey, Leah Salovey, Sarah Price Keating, and J-Fest Associate Producer Becca Myers.
It is our honor to share this year's selected Women of Valor. Beloved klezmer musician Elizabeth Schwartz, sleep researcher and professor of psychology Sonia Ancoli-Israel, Jewish Federation's Director of Philanthropy Jodie Graber, and Holocaust survivor Francheska Gelbart.
This year's inspiring honorees give us hope for a vibrant and meaningful Jewish future. Tonight, we honor Elizabeth Schwartz. Thank you so much for watching, and please enjoy A Woman of Valor.
A woman of valor, who shall find?
She is more precious than pearls.
She seeks out wool and flax and cheerfully does the work of her hands.
She is like trading ships, bringing food from afar.
She gets up while it is still night to provide for her household.
She invests herself with strength, and her arms are powerful.
She opens up her hands to the poor and reaches out to the needy.
Eshet Chayil Niimsa, a woman of valor, who shall find?
My first trip to Romania was in March of 1996. It was freezing. And Yale took us to Iași, the capital of northeastern Romania, where my father's family is from. So we were walking up to the great synagogue, the Mare, which is Romanian for big. And I stepped on the cobblestones and I felt this jolt of electricity. And I stopped and I looked at my husband, Yale, and I said, 500 years ago, someone in my family stood on this cobblestone. What an extraordinary privilege it was to step on that cobblestone. I still feel like I'm stepping on that cobblestone today. I think anything we can do to, ground ourselves to a cobblestone is like, yeah, that's who I am. You may not know who I am, but let me tell you. I'm not a religious person. I was raised as a secular humanist, and I'm still a secular humanist. And I don't see any conflict in how I connect to and interpret my innate Jewishness. I'm a cantorial soloist for the high holidays, which, for this girl who grew up with a Christmas tree is really kind of a progressive progression. Yale asked me, how does it feel to stand up there on the bima with the rabbi and sing the Kol Nidre? And I said, I really feel deeply connected to it. Not because I am having a spiritual moment for myself, but because I'm like the usher in a dark theater flashing the flashlight. I am not there to sit and watch the movie myself. I'm helping you get to your seat. And it wasn't until I started doing that I realized what I was doing in a synagogue. I come from a super assimilated background. My father was raised like in a red diaper colony, socialists, politically very progressive and completely irreligious. My mother was, for all intents and purposes, a single mother. My dad just wasn't around. And I would always see her rushing off someplace and rushing home and getting her personal time in, which for her was mainly writing and playing the piano. I had an older sister who passed away suddenly when she was 26. And I was 18. And that is a loss that still surprises me with its intensity. Her name was Nancy, and my daughter's middle name is Nan. Nancy was one of those comets, you know. By 26, she was already a successful screenwriter. She was running for the board of directors of the Writers Guild of America. She had published a major history of the Hollywood blacklist. So a very tough act to follow. It wasn't until I was 25 that I realized that it wasn't a shameful secret to not come from a Norman Rockwell kind of family. My mother was just, look, she may not have been the mother I want to be, but she was the grandmother I definitely want to be. She was an amazing grandmother, and I feel just eternally grateful that my daughter got to have that experience with her. We were in the driveway shortly after my mother died, and my daughter said, "I want to tell you something." I'm going to get very upset. And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "You know, Grandma wasn't very nice to you, but you're a good daughter." From the mouths of babes. Anyway, when I was 10, we moved from Long Island to the Mid-Hudson Valley in upstate New York. And I was put in an elementary school where I was the only Jewish child. And a lot of these kids were growing up in anti-Semitic households. And I was run out of this school, which I couldn't understand because I had no connection to Jewishness. But it doesn't matter, because when you're a Jew, you may not think much about it, but someone will always tell you, "You're a Jew." I never really thought that much about it. But I did start to notice that when I started having romantic relationships, for some reason, all my serious boyfriends were always Jewish. I will tell you that as a completely secular, barely there, Annie Hall kind of Jew, I had the most possible Jewish fix-up with Yale, involving 3 older Jewish women and a blind date. You can take the girl out of the shtetl, but you can never take the shtetl out of the girl. So I was living in Los Angeles. I had gone there to work in the film business, and I was a film executive, but I never felt at home. And my mother came out to visit me, and we were on Sunset Boulevard, and we walked into the Laemmle Theater, and there was a poster up for The Last Klezmer. And my mother said, "Oh, I saw this at the Lincoln Center. It's great. You know, the director was there doing a Q&A, and he was just fascinating. I gave him your number." I hit the ceiling. I'm like, whoa. You can't just give people my number. Don't you do that ever again. And she said, "Well, has he called?" And I said, "No, I hope he doesn't call." And so when my mother came back home from that trip to LA, she immediately called her friend Bernice, who knew Yale, and said, "He never called her." And Bernie said, "I'll send him a letter." Look, you are probably so busy with all your wonderful things, you probably forgot to call Elizabeth. Here's her name and number on an index card. And he took the index card and he stuffed it into his appointment book. So it was New Year's Day of 1995, and Yale was not having a good day. And as he likes to tell it, he reached for the TV remote and he knocked down his address book and my card popped out. And he said, oh, okay, I'll call her. She won't be home. I'll just leave a message. But I was home. And I picked up the phone and Yale said, hi, I'm Yale Strom. When I met Yale, he was just so comfortable in his own skin. Not just being Jewish, but expressing his Jewishness and celebrating Yiddishkeit, that I was so attracted to it. I used to joke I felt like Annie Hall. I mean, like I said, oh, wait, ooh, you're davening. Ooh, it's so sexy. So we went to a dinner party and there was a pianist there playing standards. And I'd had a couple glasses of wine and I sat down at the piano and I started singing. And I must have sang for a couple of hours. So we're driving home on the PCH. And I know you think I talk a lot, but I can barely get into a word edgewise with Yale. I mean, he is a talker and he was so quiet. I thought maybe he was mad at me. And he said, listen, you have to start singing with my band. And I said, what are you, nuts? I don't speak Yiddish. He said, I can teach you to speak Yiddish, but I can't teach you to sing like you can sing. And then we got engaged. And he came down to San Diego to rehearse with the guys. And he said, Elizabeth's going to sing a couple tunes with us on this next gig. Dead silence. And finally, one of the guys says, yeah, okay, well, sometimes when they want to sing, you just have to let them. Which I thought was hilarious because none of them understood just how much I did not want to sing. But then I had my debut with Yale Strom and Hot Pastrami. And after the guys heard me sing, they kind of changed their attitude. So that was the beginning. And as I tiptoed into this new world, I started to find something that I had been missing for so long, meaning. I loved what I did in Hollywood, but Hollywood didn't need me. I think sometimes you can find your way to your own sense of purpose. And I realized that that's what I had been missing my whole life. Yiddish culture, Jewish culture in general, needs active husbandry. It's not something that can survive without attention. So if you don't immerse in it, if you don't share it actively, then it becomes almost negligent homicide in a way. People ask me all the time, why don't you sing something in English? And I feel, look, you got a million people out there that are better singers than I am. What do you need me for, to sing the blues? This needs attention, and it gives me purpose. Sharing the culture through singing is what I love to do. Then in 2008, I had a doctor's visit. I had been experiencing some vertigo, and it turned out I had thyroid cancer. And he sent me to a surgeon here in San Diego. And I said, can I just ask you a question? How many of these thyroidectomies have you done? And he said, oh, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I said, okay, well, how many people have experienced vocal change? Only 3. That guy's not going anywhere near my throat. So I called a doctor friend of mine in Los Angeles, and he sent me a surgeon who specialized in singers. And he took out the lobe and he closed me back up, and then you're back to work. And I mean, you're wearing this bandana because you really have this like livid red line across your throat, but I kept my voice. I had this idea to do, to take traditional klezmer instrumental melodies and write lyrics to them. I thought, if I sing them, maybe there'll be another set of ears that'll be listening to them, So that led to a little project called the Plum Tree Songs. Okay, so the plum tree is the national tree of Romania, and it is so innately Jewish. I mean, we are trees. We've got our roots buried in the earth, and our branches are reaching upwards, forwards. And I think that's what we have to do with Jewish culture. One foot firmly in, deeply in our roots, pushing forward, constantly changing. So I am going to sing you the song that I wrote the lyrics to. Yale took me to visit Elizabeth Schwartz on this last trip to Romania, and I also met his wife, Celie Goldenzweig Schwartz. Now, what the klezmer musicians all know who make the pilgrimage to visit them is that he was this great authority, but she was the keeper of the music. So if there was a melody to be learned, it came from her. And this is a melody that she called the Bosnian Walls. Why Bosnia? Well, because it came from her uncle, and her uncle was Bosnian, and he taught it to her. It's about their family who died in the war, and she was imprisoned in the Transnistria labor camp. To me, what's remarkable about their story is, sorry, I'm getting very upset about this, is that you can go through something like that and, so much loss of the people around you, loss of yourself, and you can come through it. And they find the will to live again, and they find the will to love again, and they smile, and they find something to look forward to. It's not what happened. I mean, what's happened, happened. It's what you do with it that counts. What's happening now and what's going to happen, that's on you. When I sing, I always feel like there are a bunch of people standing behind me. Not to glorify myself. It's really not about me. It's about shining that flashlight in the darkness.
Sit with me beneath this old plum tree. Tell me your name, what you've seen.
I know so many real women of valor, and I can't even think of myself in the same grouping as them. So I'll just try to take myself out of that for a minute.
Well, it makes me laugh because, to be honest, maybe it's because of that whole matriarchal upbringing that I had, but I don't think I know too many women who aren't women of valor.
My mother was an Eshet Chayil. It's like the proverb was written about my mother. Strength and dignity are her garb. Her mouth is full of wisdom, and the teachings of kindness are on her tongue. Her life was a model for all of us to emulate.
I think a woman of valor is someone who is brave enough to make tough choices in their life, to make the right choices for their family and for their community.
There's like a bit of sacrifice, I think, that they're willing to make for the greater good.
I think it's about doing your best to be present for your family and the people that are important to you.
Even when they're tired, and even when they might be facing their own personal challenges, they're still committed to the greater good.
Women of valor are women who endure.
Shall we walk and leave our old plum tree? Walk through the unnumbered years. Before the iron thorns, you'd see another girl a bit like me. Before the iron thorns, I never wondered what it meant to not be free. Before the iron thorns, the branches of our bent and old plum tree were ripe with possibility. We'll find new trees, we'll find new dreams, and they'll be green.